To watch. In India, meanwhile, stocks rallying as the nation cut a tax on local businesses to one of the lowest in Asia. The nation is providing more than $20 billion boost to try to revive economic growth. The effective tax rate is being lowered by almost 5 percentage points. The nation's central bank governor welcomed the announcement, calling it a bold move.
And the Federal Reserve is set to add cash to a vital corner of Wall Street for a fourth straight day. The New York Fed is poised to inject as much as $75 billion into the market for very short-term debt. The repo market, prior actions have helped calm traders after repo rates soared to 10% on Tuesday, but some investors are calling for a more permanent fix, such as a regular fixed repo facility, and of course the option as well of an expansion of the balance sheet.
Yeah. Here in the UK, meanwhile, we've been talking about the pound jumping to a 2-month high yesterday on positive signals from Brussels. The European Commission president says a Brexit deal can be reached by the deadline. Bloomberg's Westminster's Sebastian Salek has the story.
Jean-Claude Juncker told Sky News that he was doing everything to prevent a no-deal Brexit, which he says will be catastrophic. He's confirmed he's been sent documents by Boris Johnson outlining draft ideas for new terms. The pair had face-to-face discussions earlier this week for the first time since the Prime Minister came into office. In London, I'm Sebastian Salek, Daybreak Europe.
Meanwhile, of course, the hearings have concluded over the lawfulness of the Prime Minister's suspension of Parliament, and the Supreme Court hopes to have a decision early next week. Tune in, of course, later today. Bloomberg Radio, 12 noon, we'll be speaking to Joey Jones, Strategic Counsel at Cicero Group, for our daily Bloomberg Westminster programme.
Yeah, looking forward to that on this final day of the week. And in terms of the Supreme Court and the prorogation, Caroline, it's interesting because if they do say that the prorogation, and that's all they're ruling on, nothing to do with actually the outcome of Brexit, if they do say it's unlawful, I read that Boris Johnson could still ask the Queen for it again.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And also into all of this mix, the parties are actually going into conference season, which is not a time where they normally sit anyway, but the deadline of Brexit is looming large.
Finally, Iran has warned that a strike against the country could lead to, quote, all-out war. That's according to the nation's foreign minister speaking to CNN. He denied Tehran's involvement in the attacks against Saudi Aramco, saying he hoped to avoid a conflict, but adding Iran was very serious about defending itself. One of the reasons, perhaps, we're seeing upward pressure on oil prices again today, Caroline.
Let's get over to Bloomberg's Leanne Gerrans now, who has all the latest in global news. Good morning, Leanne.
Good morning, Caroline. Chancellor Angela Merkel's specially convened climate cabinet has been working through the night to deliver a groundbreaking climate package. Bloomberg's Patrick Donoghue says the coalition is struggling to agree on details, including a carbon tax or carbon pricing.
The goal is to get Germany back on track to fulfill its goals to reduce greenhouse gases as part of its Paris Agreement commitments, which the country is set to miss next year. The central outcome of the talks may be a cap-and-trade system on emissions from heating and transport. Merkel's government will have a lot to answer for as thousands of protesters across Germany prepare to demonstrate on Friday to fight climate change. In Berlin, Patrick Donoghue, Bloomberg Daybreak, Europe.
China's tensions with the US might not be showing many signs of easing, but Beijing is winning some allies. For the second time in less than a week, a nation has switched relations from Taiwan to the mainland. Kiribati has severed ties with Taipei. It comes amid targeted spending from China on transport and utility infrastructure in the Pacific. A new report from Amnesty International accuses the Hong Kong police of torture and of beating protesters in custody. Bloomberg's Karen Lee says this could fuel further unrest.
Police used unnecessary and excessive force in making arrests, the report said, as the city braces for another weekend of protest following a summer of unrest that has rattled its economy. Police said Thursday that there are stringent guidelines on use of force and that officers are required to use a high level of restraint at all times. In Hong Kong, Karen Lee, Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.
And Benjamin Netanyahu's time as Israeli Prime Minister may be coming to an end. A former ally of the embattled leaders told local media he plans to recommend rival Benny Gantz as the next premier. This follows an election rerun that failed to break the political deadlock. For President Trump, it means he may be about to lose one of his closest foreign allies. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok, on Twitter. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Leanne Gerrans. This is Bloomberg Naira.
Leanne, Fran, thank you so much. Now, still ahead on Bloomberg Daybreak Europe, Alison Rose is appointed the new CEO of RBS, becoming the first female head of the UK's top lender. We discuss the significance next and ask whether she'll be seen as the continuity candidate. If we take a look at how RBS shares are trading, we did open higher on RBS's stock straight out of the gate, and now 30 minutes into the open, we're up 1.5% and generally seeing some green on the screen in European equities. This is Bloomberg.
This is the story of a very special woman. In a matter of seconds, she turned herself into a great mathematician or an entrepreneur. Her knowledge was limitless and still is. She could also make monsters disappear, especially those that lurked in the shadows under the bed. Once, this woman put back together a teenage girl's broken heart, which had been shattered in 1,000 pieces, just by giving her a bear hug. She masqueraded as a regular person at work, but as a superhero at home. Everyone knows her as Gabriella. I still call her Mom.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need to help, complete with tips and resources at aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Business leaders are increasingly demanding the outcomes they want, when they want them, and paying only for what they use. At Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, we're bringing that flexibility and control to IT with HPE GreenLake. Pay-per-use outcomes on your terms. Come to HPE GreenLake and see the future of IT. Get there at hpe.com/GreenLake.
You know your body, and you know when something's off, when something doesn't feel quite right. Don't ignore symptoms like fatigue, joint pain, rashes, and fever. They could be signs of lupus. Listen to your body. Take care of yourself. We're here to help you take control of your health. Learn how at BeFierceTakeControl.org. Brought to you by the Lupus Foundation of America and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Influential conversations from Bloomberg Television. Here's Alex Steele.
Another company at the forefront of sustainable fashion is Allbirds, an environmentally friendly footwear company. The eco-friendly sneakers are made from renewable, sustainable materials like wool, sugar, and tree fiber. Joining me now from San Francisco is Jolie Zwillinger, Allbirds co-founder and co-CEO. Can you talk a little bit to us about how you make a product people want that work, that's profitable, and also be very sustainable?
Yeah, it's a related thing. We started the company because we saw this opportunity that this enormous industry in footwear, which emits, as you were noting, a huge amount of the world's global kind of carbon emissions, and we saw that as a result of this, everyone was moving faster, cheaper materials as quick as they can and just slapping a big logo on the side. And so we actually saw that the alignment of using really premium natural materials that were actually good for the planet and making good business for customers was actually a really big opportunity that was being overlooked by some of the big athletic companies and some of the other fashion companies. And so we take these really premium materials and we actually let them do the work. Mm-hmm. And we design wonderful shoes and other products and these premium materials make it feel super comfortable and make it a great product.
Hear more interviews like this one on Bloomberg Television, streaming live on Bloomberg.com and on the Bloomberg mobile app, or check your local cable listings.
Bloomberg.
Markets, headlines and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
I'm Sandra Kilhoff. Time for a Bloomberg Radio Business Flash. Now over to the First Word breaking news desk for today's morning call. Here's Michael Reid.
Good morning, Sandra. All things Brexit back in focus. The pound sterling trades up around 2-month highs, but off this morning's best levels after last night's comment from EU's Juncker, who thinks that a Brexit deal can be reached by the 31st of October. Gilts gapped lower on their open, yields up around 2 basis points across the curve. Short sterling futures lower by around 4 points out to the green pack. Bunds and treasuries steady, all relatively quiet in the peripheral bond space so far this morning. European equities are little changed. Retail and utility names trade well. Chemical and oil and gas producers in the red. Brent and WTI crude sideways. Coming up today, relatively quiet on the data front to round off the week. We have Eurozone consumer confidence and Canadian retail sales to Daytown. Slightly busier on the central bank front. ECB's Rim Savage due this morning. Afternoon, we'll hear from Fed's Williams and Clarida and the ECB's Visco. Reminder that it's quadruple witching day today, the quarterly expiration of futures and options on indices and single stocks. We also have the New York Fed conducting a repo op for the 4th straight day. That's it from me. To hear live breaking news, type SQUA on your Bloomberg terminal. Sandra.
Thanks, Michael. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Now here's Leanne Gerrans with more on what's going on around the world.
Sandra, thank you. 2 people have drowned in Texas as the remnants of Tropical Storm Imelda caused major flooding across the state. Authorities say there have been around 1,000 rescues and some areas could see a meter of rain this week. The storms have also flooded parts of southwestern Louisiana. Controversy over President Trump's communications with a foreign leader. The Washington Post reporting an anonymous whistleblower raised concerns over the president's dealings with Ukraine. Now, Democratic lawmakers are accusing intelligence officials of stonewalling on details of the complaint. President Trump dismissing suggestions he did anything inappropriate. And finally, Japan will become the first Asian nation to host a Rugby Union World Cup when they get the tournament underway, and that's happening this morning. Russia are their opponents in Tokyo. England are among the favourites to lift the trophy, but don't start to play until Sunday. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok, on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Leanne Gerrans. This is Bloomberg Naira.
Leanne, where are you going to be watching the rugby then?
In every single pub that Clapham has to offer.
Simultaneously.
Yeah, I'll just go from one to another.
Plenty of games to watch, I guess. Yes. So yes, you could spend the whole weekend, the whole next 6 weeks just doing that, in fact.
Thank you so much, Leanne Gerrans with the World News. Now to our top corporate story of the day, and RBS getting a new boss. Alison Rose will take over as the bank's next CEO from November 1st, leaving her deputy CEO role at NatWest. The move makes her the first female head of the UK's top lenders. For more on the story, we're joined by Bloomberg's European finance editor, Ross Larson. Ross, great to have you with us. Is Alison Rose the continuity candidate?
Yes, very much. I mean, this has been the candidate that's been flagged for a long time. A lot of talk about them grooming her for years for this position. So anybody else would have actually been a surprise. Of course, they kept up the discussion. There are other candidates in the mix, internal, external. They have to look like they're doing their due diligence. But she's the one in the system, absolutely.
Okay, she's going to face some enormous challenges, potentially coming into the role on the first day of Brexit, if that does happen on the 31st of October. You also have low interest rates, global slowdown, and the company is still largely government-owned after a decade.
Right. In some ways, it might be a good day for her, but it's not an enviable role in a lot of ways. A lot of struggles. There's still, I think, 62% government ownership, which is very high and something that they didn't still want to be in. As you say, the whole market across Europe is in a difficult time, so she's got her work cut out for her, absolutely.
Yeah, and for RBS, like a lot of banks in Europe, to be fair, Ross, I mean, the issue is, yes, they've been very good with cutting the costs, but the question always comes with how they're going to generate that top-line growth. What might we get from Alison Rose on that front? More of the same?
Well, that would be the first guess, again, since she's inside the system. And, they're not done with the cost cutting, but as you say, that will run out at some point, and you're going to have to see a lot of creativity to find new sources of better profit margins, and this is something that banks across Europe are having a very big problem with.
Yeah, indeed. I suppose it's interesting, though, that RBS is one of the UK's largest lenders to small and mid-sized businesses, and this is obviously Rose's background, her speciality. Look, what do we make of the fact that it's the first female leader of a major UK bank, and actually it's the second woman that they brought in at C-suite level? There's a lot of interest now in female leadership and greater diversity. Investors are really paying attention to this and whether this juices the share price.
Sure, I think that's definitely true, and having a woman as a CFO as well really bolsters that. It remains to be seen. Will people be looking at this as let's see how well women do in these top roles, and will their performance affect choices for women across the board in a wider way? It's kind of hard to say at this point, but certainly I think she'll be under the microscope a bit more than a male candidate would be, and it could be, if she's very successful, yes, it could be a big boost for women at the top level across Europe, not only in banking but in other industries.
Yeah, and the exposure to small and medium-sized businesses for RBS that Caroline was referring to, of course, is one of the reasons as well that a no-deal Brexit could be potentially very painful for RBS. And Alison Rose actually taking the post on November 1st, quite a challenging date.
Well, yes, that's definitely saying it. She'll have to, if the exit does happen on October 31st, like every business, they'll have to figure out what changes from day one. And I'm sure that there's a lot of cost to that and a lot of risk to a lot of your businesses to figure out what's the impact going to be and how do we counter it. It's going to be scrambling on everybody's part, especially someone starting their first day.
Great to have you with us. Thank you so much for joining us, our Bloomberg European Finance Editor, Ross Larson.
Okay, let's tell you what's coming up next on Bloomberg Daybreak Europe. India cuts its corporate tax to one of the lowest rates in Asia. We'll have all the details on this $20 billion boost to revive the country's economic growth next. That's from the current finance minister. It was welcomed by the central bank governor, so we can digest that coming up next. This is Bloomberg, and with the latest on the market, as we head higher for European stocks, up 0.1%. This is Bloomberg.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. The so-called quadruple witching expirations of options and futures could increase market volume and cause some extra volatility for the Friday session on Wall Street. Stocks did little more than mark time in Thursday trading as investors evaluated mixed signals on the trade situation with China. Mark Vittner of Wells Fargo tells Bloomberg Radio he is optimistic on trade.
I really think that we could get an agreement in principle before the end of the year and possibly have a final deal done by Easter.
Vittner says an agreement in principle would remove a lot of uncertainty. Apple's new iPhones go on sale today, and the Impossible Burger makes its grocery store debut. A small Southern California chain, Gelson's Markets, will be the first to carry the plant-based burger. Amazon is promising to become greener. The e-commerce giant says 100,000 electric delivery vans are on order. They'll hit the road starting in 2021. Jeff Bellinger, Bloomberg Radio.
In-depth analysis, concise reporting, need-to-know global business news. Around the world and across the markets, Bloomberg connects the dots for decision makers. Stay on top of today's headlines. Follow big breakthroughs in tech. Understand the latest political issues. See how the world's wealthiest are spending their money. Track what's happening in the markets, and much more. Subscribe today to Bloomberg, the global standard for business reporting. Get it all at Bloomberg.com/subscriptions.
In today's volatile markets, investors need resilient portfolios to help handle the pressure. Through decades of expansions and recessions and changing interest rates, clients have turned to PIMCO to help them stay on course, no matter what course markets take. PIMCO, active fixed income solutions that aim to give investors an edge. All investments contain risk and may lose value. Investing in the bond market is subject to risks. Consult your investment professional prior to making an investment decision.
Did someone say winter sun? It's that time again. And this year at Jet2 Holidays, we're saying Cyprus. On this incredible island, you get it all. A choice of 4- and 5-star hotels, amazing ancient ruins for culture-packed days out, hiking and cycling trails for active adventures, and plenty of blue flag beaches for soaking up that winter sun. Book Cyprus now with just a £60 deposit. Jet2 Holidays. Package holidays you can trust. APRA net or protected, subject to availability and conditions.
You're in charge of hiring, and Indeed has solutions, like online skills tests, which let a candidate show that they are the right hire. And we give you this toy monkey, who will bang its cymbals when the right CV appears on your desktop. Okay, there is no monkey. There is no monkey. But there are online skills tests.
See why more than 250,000 companies in the UK
Use Indeed for hiring. Visit Indeed.com/try today to try skills tests for free today. Terms and conditions apply.
No. No. No.
What are you doing?
I don't like any of our preset radio stations. We need a new car.
With the Jaguar E-Pace at $299 a month on personal contract hire, you'll find a reason.
That's better. And it's a Jaguar.
Initial rental £3,588. 48-month term. Subject to status. 8,000 miles per annum. Excess mileage and return conditions apply. No ownership option. Ends 30th of September. Participating retailers only. Jaguar contract hire.
1 in 4 children believe potatoes grow on trees. 1 in 5 children believe fish fingers are made from chicken. And 1 in 8 adults believe the moon landings didn't happen. People believe all sorts of strange things. Some people believe that insurance companies try to avoid paying claims. But last year, Zurich paid 99% of insurance claims made by their UK customers. Zurich, an insurance company you can believe in. To find out more, visit zurich.co.uk/99.
We could play epic music, or we could speak in an overdramatic tone, or even set off fireworks. But that's just not smarty. Instead, we let our offer do the talking. Right now, you can grab 25% off our unlimited data SIM. That's just $18.75 a month with no speed restrictions, no credit check, and no long contract to tie you in. Now that's smarty. Just search Smarty Mobile and switch today. It's easy. Offer available for a limited time only. See smarty.co.uk for terms.
This one shouldn't take long. Of course, if it had a cover, I might not be bothered. Can't see what's under there. And then they'd have chained the back wheel. It would have taken me much longer, especially if the chain's off the ground. Makes it harder to cut. This one doesn't even have a lock on the front. So, in the time I've been talking to you, I've nicked it.
Over 9,000 scooters and motorbikes were stolen in London last year. Lock your bike, chain the rear wheel, and cover it to make it harder to steal. Lock, chain, cover. The Met Police.
Broadcasting live to London on DAB digital radio, to New York, Bloomberg 1130, to Washington DC, Bloomberg 99.1, to Boston, Bloomberg 106.1, to San Francisco, Bloomberg 960, and around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.
8:30 a.m. in London, 9:30 if you're listening in Paris, Frankfurt or Brussels. Good morning, everyone. I'm Naira Chehich.
And welcome to the programme. I'm Caroline Hepker. You're listening to Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.
Caroline, we're 30 minutes into the equity market open in Europe, and we are seeing some green on the screen. We're up 0.1% on the Stock 600, but not quite the gains of 0.6% that we closed with yesterday. Looking at the industry groups, retail, utilities, travel and leisure outperforming to the upside. Chemicals and personal and household goods are underperforming. On regional benchmarks, you're looking at some weakness in the FTSE 100, down 0.25 percentage point. You wonder whether some of that has to do with the strength in sterling that we've seen over the past couple of days. The CAC 40's flat, the DAX down 0.1%, the IBEX edges into the green, the FTSE MIB is flat. US futures not giving a huge amount of direction, but edging up slightly, up 0.1% on the S&P 500, Dow and NASDAQ futures. And the 10-year yield, the Treasury yield, after jumping 33 basis points last week, we drop about 12 this week, and today we're down 2 basis points on a 176 handle. Of course, we did see some curve flattening after Jerome Powell's news conference, but interestingly, the 2-year yield has also dropped this week. That's steady now, though, on a 174 handle. Looking at European bonds, 10-year Bund yield steady, -51. The 10-year gilt yield is steady now after rising earlier at 65 basis points. And speaking of the rising pound that I was talking about, what we're seeing here is sterling extending its gains from yesterday, so we're at 125.61. The market jumping on the comments perhaps from Jean-Claude Juncker talking about no-deal Brexit being able to be avoided, showing some optimism about a deal. Whether you want to buy it or not is another question. And just got to focus on one stock, which is RBS, basically having a new CEO, Alison Rose, the first woman to run the top UK lender. Bloomberg Intelligence says she's the best person for a tough, thankless task, and Investec saying the move is sensible and should ensure continuity. In terms of how RBS shares are reacting, we're seeing them up 1.4%. And just very quickly, oil on the front foot again. Some big moves this week and concerns around Iran perhaps lifting the price today. 58.62 on WTI, Brent at 64.84. Caroline.
Okay, let's take you to our top stories this morning. You mentioned the pound jumping close to a 2-month high yesterday. Positive signals from Brussels. The President of the European Commission, Jean-Claude Juncker, telling Sky News that a deal over Brexit is possible.
I had a meeting with Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister. This was
a rather positive meeting, although the British press was reporting it in the other way. We can have a deal.
So Juncker went on to say that no agreement would have catastrophic consequences, i.e. a no-deal Brexit. The pair had face-to-face discussions earlier this week for the first time since the Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, came into office. Meanwhile, hearings have concluded over the lawfulness of the Prime Minister's suspension of Parliament, and the Supreme Court hopes to have a decision earlier next week. But I also note just in the last few minutes, Naira, from the Irish Deputy Premier Simon Coveney, so more on the Brexit issue and the Irish backstop. Serious problems arise from the UK approach. They're still waiting for serious proposals from Britain in terms of that backstop.
All right, so that's still ongoing. We'll see whether the pound gets hit from that. Interestingly, BNY Mellon coming out in the last 24 hours and saying that the pound on no deal could hit parity with both the euro and the dollar. Of course, we have heard that from some other people before as well. And just to sort of flesh out the RBS story a tiny bit, of course, I gave the update in the data check, but Alison Rose will start the position of CEO from November 1st. That sort of relates to our Brexit conversation, given that it's the day after the deadline. She's also currently Deputy Chief of NatWest Holdings and CEO of the Commercial and Private Bank. The current boss, Ross McEwan, will formally step down on the last day of October.
Okay, meanwhile, there is pressure building on the Federal Reserve to permanently fix problems in the funding markets. The New York Fed's plans will be another $75 billion worth of overnight repo operations today. That will be the fourth cash injection in a row. Market participants say that the Fed needs to come up with a long-term solution, though, to the problems.
Now, India is cutting tax on local businesses to one of the lowest rates in Asia. It's providing a more than $20 billion boost to revive economic growth from a 6-year low. The effective tax rate on companies is being lowered by nearly 5 percentage points.
Okay, let's get more on this story with New Delhi Bureau Chief Uni Krishnan. Very good to speak to you this morning. So the Finance Minister announcing this move, the market taking it very favourably.
Good morning. Yeah, it's sort of a milestone event in the government's efforts to reverse the economic slowdown. Remember, India is now growing at a 6-year low, and it has slipped a few places in its ranking in terms of the fastest growing major economy in the world. So what the government has essentially done is that it's cut down the taxes that companies pay from about 30% to a new effective rate about 25%. So that's about a 5 percentage point decline in corporate taxes. And for new companies, and this is the interesting bit, for new companies who are entering the country and into manufacturing sector, they end up paying a tax rate of about 17%. That's possibly one of the most attractive, it makes India one of the most attractive investment destinations, at least in the whole of Asia. And what does this mean for the economy? It injects a stimulus of about $20 billion into the economy, and the government expects that companies pay lower taxes, so they price their goods lower, and the consumers start buying those products at lower rates, so that kickstarts consumer spending. And naturally, the markets are quite thrilled. In fact, the stock markets are at a record high. They've risen the fastest in almost 10 years now, in a decade.
Yeah, and Uni, when we spoke on TV earlier, you said part of that also, that big jump was down to the fact that this really came as a bolt out of the blue. So as we look forward, what more can we expect in terms of fiscal stimulus?
Yeah, I mean, the government, has a very limited space, because one of the major reasons why they have been hesitating in taking this major step that they've done today was the budget gap. Remember, India runs a deficit, and it's about 3.3%, and with this measure, it will now take the deficit closer to about 4% of GDP. So going forward, I think there will be incremental steps. They'll be tinkering with the goods and services tax, but when the economic history of this era or period is written, this will possibly be one of the biggest steps that you would see from the government.
Yeah, indeed, because the government has made missteps on the economy in the past, hasn't it? Where is the money coming from then for this massive tax cut?
I mean, indeed, there was sort of a botched up implementation of the goods and services tax. It was set out earlier to replace the archaic tax system, but then India ended up with about 5 rates. So they have now gradually pruned it to about 3 to 4 rates. You might see more of that tinkering to sort out the sort of mess they created from a botched rollout. Primarily, the money from this, what the government is hoping is that this will lead to a revival in consumer demand, and once consumer demand gets revived, you would end up getting more. You would end up getting more taxes. I mean, it's a classical thing that lower taxes leads to higher collection, and that's what the government is expecting. The other one is that they got a bonus payment from the Reserve Bank of India in terms of a surplus transfer, so that money is also coming quite handy now.
Okay, great stuff. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, New Delhi Bureau Chief Uni Krishnan. They're live on the line.
Let's get the world news now with Leanne Gerrans. Leanne.
Good morning, Naira. In Hong Kong, controversy over conduct during recent demonstrations. Amnesty International is alleging the police beat pro-democracy protesters and committed acts that amount to torture. Hong Kong's police wouldn't comment on individual cases, but says it respects the rights of people in custody. Demonstrations are expected to continue this weekend. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is in full damage repair mode. This says he scrambles to limit the political fallout from the publication of photos showing him wearing black face makeup on more than 3 occasions. Bloomberg's Theo Argytis reports.
Trudeau, the son of a former prime minister, claims he didn't understand at the time that what he was doing was racist. But the release of the photos couldn't have come at a worse time for the governing Liberals, only weeks before the October 21st federal election. On the campaign trail in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Theo Argytis, Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.
China's tensions with the US may not be showing many signs of easing, but Beijing is winning some allies. For the second time in less than a week, a nation has switched relations from Taiwan to the mainland. Kiribati has severed ties with Taipei. It comes amid targeted spending from China on transport and utility infrastructure in the Pacific. And finally, Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison is in Washington for a 6-day visit to the US. He will hold talks with President Donald Trump on China's growing influence in the South Pacific. Bloomberg's Jason Scott reports.
On Friday, Morrison will have a day of meetings with the Trump administration before attending a lavish state dinner in the Rose Garden, just the second Trump has hosted as president and the first for an Australian leader since 2006. As well as China's geopolitical ambitions in the Pacific Islands, the leaders will also discuss joint efforts to address North Korea's nuclear weapons program. In Canberra, Jason Scott, Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.
Global news 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok, on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Leanne Gerrans. This is Bloomberg Caroline.
Thank you so much, Leanne, for that world news update. Now, coming up next on Bloomberg Daybreak Europe, the central bank bonanza has passed. We get some policy easing, some tightening, and a number of holds. What does it all mean when we analyse the moves? We're going to discuss that next with Brendan Brown, who is Senior Fellow at the Hudson Institute and the publisher of Monetary Scenarios. That's coming up next. This is Bloomberg.
The possibility of lung cancer can be pretty scary, especially if you're one of approximately 8 million current or former smokers at high risk. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know that now there's a breakthrough low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early, and it only takes 60 seconds. You stop smoking, now start screening. For an easy quiz to see if you're eligible, visit SaveByTheScan.org. It could save your life. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
Hello, I'm here to tell you that age really does bring wisdom, and you may still have plenty to contribute. At EisnerAmper, we're successful at helping business owners and entrepreneurs assess and plan for the future, as well as maximize where you are in the present. If you're curious about how to plan for both your professional and personal future, come and talk to us. I'm Lisa Stewart, principal in charge of the Center for Family Business Excellence, and I'd love to help you to find the right path forward. You can find us at EisnerAmper.com/family.
Elite advisory firms rely on BNY Mellon's Pershing to meet the needs of their most complex clients. Karen Novak, Chief Operating Officer at Pershing Advisor Solutions, explains how.
At BNY Mellon's Pershing, we bring customized insights and strategies to help you grow your advisory business and stay on the leading edge. We can support the needs of your most sophisticated clients with a full range of investment and wealth management solutions, from access to private banking to consolidated bank and brokerage custody. Learn why so many of the largest advisory firms turn to us for the financial strength and high-touch service that BNY Mellon's Pershing can provide. Are you well positioned to stand out from your competition?
Learn more at Pershing.com or call 800-445-4467. Brokerage custody provided by Pershing LLC and other services provided by Pershing Advisor Solutions LLC. Both members of FINRA and SIPC. Private banking and bank custody provided by BNY Mellon NA. Member FDIC.
I can find and fund my car, from a Mini to a Jaguar.
Feel-good car buying from findandfundmycar.com is the place where you can find quality used cars from trusted dealers rated by you, and where you can fund your car with finance to fit your budget. It's feel-good car buying, all in one place.
Shouldn't be a carry on, choose findandfundmycar.com.
At Jet2.com, we're proud to be named TripAdvisor's best UK airline for the 3rd year running. Discover 64 great destinations from 9 UK airports. Book now from only £49. Jet2.com. Friendly low fares. Price one way, including taxes, subject to availability and conditions.
You're in charge of hiring, and Indeed has solutions, like online skills tests, which let a candidate show that they are the right hire. And we give you this toy monkey, who will bang its symbols when the right CV appears on your desktop. Okay, there is no monkey. There is no monkey. But there are online skills tests.
See why more than 250,000 companies in the UK use Indeed for hiring. Visit Indeed.com/try today to try skills tests for free today. Terms and conditions apply.
Dreaming of a new kitchen? At Wix, we take care of everything, from expert design to an installation service you can trust. And there's a great price. Right now, there's up to 50% off kitchen installation. Speak to us today and get your kitchen installed for Christmas. For minimum spend, terms and exclusions, see wix.co.uk.
We could play epic music, or we could speak in an overdramatic tone, or even set off fireworks. But that's just not smarty. Instead, we let our offer do the talking. Right now, you can grab 25% off our unlimited data SIM. That's just $18.75 a month, with no speed restrictions, no credit check, and no long contract to tie you in. Now that's smarty. Just search Smarty Mobile and switch today. It's easy. Offer available for a limited time only. See smarty.co.uk for terms.
This one shouldn't take long. Of course, if it had a cover, I might not be bothered. Can't see what's under there. And they'd have chained the back wheel. It would have taken me much longer, especially if the chain's off the ground. Makes it harder to cut. This one doesn't even have a lock on the front. So, in the time I've been talking to you, I've nicked it.
Over 9,000 scooters and motorbikes were stolen in London last year. Lock your bike, chain the rear wheel, and cover it to make it harder to steal. Lock, chain, cover. The Met Police.
British summer can be as unpredictable as the weather. Footwear dilemma. Introducing convertible wellies. 1 minute they're Wellington boots, the next flip-flops.
Ooh, slightly embarrassing. Convertible wellies will never happen. However, with the new BP Me Rewards card, getting more of the summer essentials you love more often will. Search BP Me Rewards to find out more. BP. Every day. Brighter.
Get smart, get savvy, and get saving this month at Tesco Mobile with some of our best ever prices on the latest phones, like the Samsung Galaxy S10 Plus, now only $34.49 a month. A huge saving of £144. It's just one of the ways we're celebrating 100 years of great value. Go in store or search Tesco Mobile. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Ends 29th of September. S10 Plus savings based on £4 per month. 36-month credit agreement, 24-month usage agreement, subject to status.